I'm sitting down with Brian Luebben, the host of Action Academy, and a guy who's interviewed over 500 successful millionaires and 2 billionaires. We dive into the shadow side of life, what it looks like to live with regret, remorse, and forgiveness. We talk about building a 7-figure business out of the basement of a house hack for only $300. And we even touch on what it looks like to continue to take action in spite of the fears and the doubts we all have inside of ours. If you like what you hear, do me a favor and share this with someone that needs to hear. Because one of the things I admire about you is you bootstrapped it.
Yeah, bootstrapped it.
You started
completely.
it in recording in an apartment, right? In the basement.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started recording the podcast in 2021 from the basement of my house hack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just bootstrapped it all.
Correct.
But you started with a couple $100 podcast equipment?
Yeah, $279 for the podcast mic. And I didn't even understand how to make the podcast mic work in the beginning, so I just was using the MacBook mic, but I had the podcast that I was talking into, and it wasn't even connected for the first 20 episodes. And that's why I think it's cute whenever somebody tries to give me their podcast plan or their plan for anything in general. I'm just like, oh, that's adorable. Yeah. Just do it.
Yeah.
So if somebody hasn't done something to a multitude of 10, dozens to 50 to 100 times, then I'm just don't even ask for advice. Do the thing first and then iterate.
Well, what advice would you give yourself if you're starting all over? What would you do different?
If I go back to college, if I go all the way back to college before any investing at all, I would have done more research on what the ultra wealthy do, and I would have done that asset class specifically first. I wouldn't have done the bigger pocket stack method, which is a house 1 year, 2 houses the next year, 4 houses the next year. That's not a fact. It's not a rule. You can just do the big stuff in the very beginning. But the kicker is, if I could go all the way back, what I would do is I would have found who's doing the commercial, the triple net lease, the office buildings, the multifamily, the biggest player in my market. I would have hitched my wagon to them, would have gutted their apartments for free. I would have found deals for them for free and just worked my ass off for them for free. Gotten a 10%, 20% minority equity stake in the first couple of the deals. Rode that wagon, you talk about this a lot, riding the big wake. Yeah. And so I would have rode in their wake and then would have used them as the KP on doing a larger deal. And then probably about 22, 23, I would have already been swinging the bat at 50 units and stuff.
And how are you taking that same knowledge and applying it to what you're doing in Action Academy?
Well, today what I do is I've interviewed probably, God dang, dude. How many people have I interviewed now? I think I've interviewed probably 500 multimillionaires, 2 billionaires. So normally, normal guests on the show is between 5 and 50 million. And so I'm able to take all of the different asset classes and kind of combine them all together and make informed and educated guesses. And what I'll do is I have this thing called strong beliefs loosely held. So I'll have this idea or this concept of how the world works or how an economic machine works. I'm like, this is it, but I'm going to go ask a lot of smart people independently and see if they validate it. And so across validation, that process, I've realized that commercial and small business, private equity, are the long-term plays. That's what the ultra wealthy have in their portfolios, which extensively. Mm-hmm. And so that is my primary focus now. So it's just I do the same thing today when I'm scaling my business. I look at both the wins of other people, but also the failures. I think one failure is worth about 100 wins.
Yeah, I'd say that's about right.
Yeah.
What lesson, what's been the greatest lesson? You've interviewed all of these people. You've done a podcast a day or podcast a week? How many have you done?
Yeah, we've done 800, 900 episodes, podcasts a day, 5 episodes a week for 3 years.
You can keep it up?
I'm going to keep it up.
You can keep it up.
Yeah. There's actually not a sexy reason behind starting that. It was just I did 2 episodes a week, and then I was I need to do a solo show. And I started doing a solo show, and then I was just well, there's 2 days now that are dipping, and that's pissing me off. So then I just filled those 2 days, and then I just asked the question now every single time I'm still doing it. I'm because I've done it across I think 12 time zones, 42 countries. And as I've done it, it'll be in Greece. I'm oh shit, I need to make a podcast episode. And what anything it's taught me is just doing the little things repeatedly, the unscalable stuff over and over and over again. And also just why not do the extra inch? So I'm working on this whole concept right now where it's just the effort that it takes to go from the top 90% to the top 10% is substantial, but the effort to go from the top 10% to the top 1% is 10 times that.
Yep.
And so that's the jump that we're making, is that jump from good to great, excellent to elite.
Yep.
And what most people don't realize is it's a multitude of 100 times harder than even getting to the league.
What do you think is holding you back from doing that?
Time. That's where my confidence comes from. So I have this quote called immersion yields conversion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you would describe me, and I think most people that would describe me, like when they first meet me, is as a supremely confident person, sometimes to the point of delusion, which, sometimes benefits me more than it hurts me, but it also hurts me at times. And the best advice that I give to people when it comes to confidence in particular is immersion yields conversion. So what I do is I have this crystal clear vision of who I want to be, and I call him 8-figure Brian for the time being. Then it'll be 9-figure Brian. 8-figure Brian's a calm, cool cucumber. This guy's got it figured out. He's got systems, process, team. Like, he understands paid ads, organic traffic, understands business ops and scale like no other. He understands how to diversify his life and split it out. And so what I do is I take that guy and I go find him in the wild. Like, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, where does that person exist out in the real world? And I go and I hitch my wagon to all of those people. I hang around them. I see what actions they take. Well, that's a key distinction is I don't look at like what they say. I look at what they do. I do the same things, and therefore the only delta in between is time.
Don't you think though that oftentimes confidence is perceived as confidence, but behind the confidence is actually insecurity? Like if you look back on the first ever GoBundance room you walked into, which would have been 2020, I believe, because I think we were like right in the middle of a pandemic. I could be wrong, but you walked into that room confident, and I have to guess, based on my own personal experiences, that below all that confidence was a sense, whether a little bit or a big bit, of sense of like, what in the hell am I doing in this room?
I would actually say the opposite. So I would say my confidence there came from a perspective, and actually I think the reason that I became friends with millionaires easier when I wasn't one was because I didn't care. Like, for me, the measure of value was just I got around enough rich people to understand that they weren't better than me.
No, they're the same.
But most people haven't done that. And so by the point that I entered that room, then I was just like, okay, you're the same as me. You've just put more time in the game.
Yeah.
And so, like, I have this quote where I say, instead of trying to be the most interested in the room, instead of being the most interesting in the room, be the most interested in the room. And it makes the game a lot easier to play. Yeah. So it's easy to be perceived as confident when all I'm doing is asking really good questions and shutting up.
But don't you think by just merely saying they're no better than me, they're the same, they're deep, deep, deep down, there's some insecurity there?
Why would you think that would be insecurity, though?
Because I think at the end of the day, when you really think about all of the successes you've had in your life, all of the successes I've had, all of the successes David's had, if you really go deep, and most people aren't willing to go deep, by the way, but if you really peel back the onion, somewhere deeply rooted in that is a sense of insecurity. And like insecurity to mean, I want to be loved, I want to be appreciated, I want to be seen, like the three core human needs, right? Seen, heard, and loved. Like that's at the end of the day, when you really look at humans, that's what we want. And what drives a lot of successful people, like many that I've talked to, many that I've spent a ton of time with, is deep, deep, deep down a sense of insecurity. Now, on the surface, you see confidence, but like if you ask them at their truest core, what do you want more than anything? It's just to be accepted. And that's like, from my perspective, a form of insecurity. Now, I think the world believes insecurity is a negative thing. I don't think insecurity is a bad thing at all. Like I actually think it's something, when you embrace it, it becomes your superpower. Like I'm insecure all the time. And when I'm vulnerable about my insecurities, it leads me to have cool conversations, ask great questions, and then learn and gather all the information. But I mean, you're saying confidence, but I actually don't see you as this confident person, because to me, confidence comes with arrogance. And arrogance comes with a lack of willingness to ask questions. And what I've experienced from you and many other very successful people my entire life is actually the most confident person in the room is the one that asks the most questions. And most people won't perceive that as confidence.
Well, I want to make a distinction there, because there's a key distinction between confidence and cockiness. And I think the answer is noise.
It's part of it for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, because I've battled with this also, is your greatest weakness is your greatest strength overused. So for me, it is my ambition and my confidence. So when that is overused, that becomes arrogance and it becomes obsession. And, for my mother, as a polar opposite example, to just like land the plane there, she's a people person, she's a nurse, but then that, led to its extreme as her greatest weakness, where she can sometimes have a tendency for people to walk over her. I'm trying to noodle on this question. And for me, I think, like, I 100% agree with you that there's two forms of confidence, right? There's like your initial confidence, where it's almost like a fake it before you make it. And then there's an earned confidence, where it's what Hormozy talked about, having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are, right?
Yeah.
And so the million-dollar question is, what source do you drive that initial confidence from to get into the room with people that have earned confidence?
Yeah.
And I think that, to your point, the more secure you are fundamentally, the more it'll come off as a cockiness of trying to like overcompensate. And then that's from like the significance perspective, where you're aiming for significance. You don't feel significant, so you're trying to like feign significance.
Yeah, project it.
And so for me, yeah, there's 1,000% of like all the voices in my head that are always saying you're not enough, you're not worthy, you're not doing this. But I just think I have something wrong in my brain where I was just like, I think everything is figure outable, and I'm just curious. I think my curiosity overtakes my voice of telling me that I'm not enough. And I'm just curious about how other people are able to figure it out. Because I always say, if you can figure it out, I can figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I think it all just comes back to a place of like, I think that a superpower of mine, I mean, you would know better than me because you're the external perspective, is my curiosity.
Yeah.
Because I don't really think about me as much. A quote from you and David that has really helped me the most is going from me to we to they.
Yeah.
And when I made the pivot from me to we in life and just changed everything from my business, from my thinking, from my the way that I perceived value, my life 100x'd in every direction. But to your point, my initial success, my initial confidence came from a place of trying to impress my father and earn my father's love.
Right.
That's where it stemmed from. And a lot of entrepreneurs are the same way, where we have daddy issues.
Correct.
We're like, Dad, I want you to love me. And then it's like, Dad, I want you to love me. And it's like, fuck you, Dad, love me.
Yeah.
And then it's, I'm going to make more money than you've ever seen in your life until you acknowledge me and you respect me.
Yeah.
And that's where the insecurity and all that comes from. But I reached a point where we finally figured out how much my father made, which was $170,612, because it was a federal, he was a air traffic controller. Then I made that in corporate, and I was like, yeah, Dad's going to love me now. And then I made more than that. Then I made double that. And then I made triple that. And then I made $1 million take home this year. And I'm like, doesn't matter. Never mattered.
No.
So that's not a fuel that I can continue to burn.
Do you think throughout that entire journey, you loved you?
I think there's a few different types of love. I think my ultimate type of love for myself is respect. Like, do I respect the things that I'm doing? I always loved myself as a human, but I was always really, really hard on myself. And something that I've been doing recently is a lot of shadow work. So with like Dr. Kelly. Yeah. And so we've been working on those parts of you that are not the parts that you enjoy. And the thing that I'm coming to terms with, I think a full encompassing love of yourself is loving every part of you.
Yes.
Which is not just the good and the, wow, look at me, I'm a contributing member to society, I'm a good friend, I'm a great lover, but also I'm arrogant, I'm selfish, like I'm self-serving at times. I get too angry over little things. Yeah. All of you. Because when you like scream at that shadow, that's screaming at a part of you fundamentally, because you are human. Yeah. So I mean, I'm dancing with that person more than I used to, but it's still a recurring dance. It's an evolving dance.
Yeah, it's complicated. Like what I hear you saying is your father wasn't capable of loving you because he probably didn't love himself. And he wasn't capable of loving himself because his father probably didn't love himself. And so there's this like never-ending cycle in your family of trauma, unless you choose, which you're actively choosing, to go like, okay, I'm going to go look at the shadow side, even though it's uncomfortable and it's scary and I'm not going to love it, but I'm going to learn to love it. I'm going to embrace it. And that's what the journey you're on, it sounds like.
Correct. But to all of the people listening that have had that happen to them, where they had a father that withdrew love or a mother that withdrew love, I would actually make the argument that they actually loved fully. They just did the best they could. Yes. They loved to their ability. Yep. It wasn't that they like were like, oh, I'm half in, I'm half out. They did the best they could. Yep. And something that I've been coming to terms with is, if you are going to blame your parents and if you're going to blame people in your past for all the bad things, you have to blame them for the good too. Yep. And so that's something that I'm working on is I had to call my dad and blame him for how much of a badass I became.
How did that conversation go?
Well, it was after Tony Robbins, so it wasn't that wonderful. It's funny. It was a cool little exercise. So it's, he drops this bomb on you, right? And then you have this exercise where it's
Tony or he dad?
Tony Robbins.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So I'm at this Tony Robbins event, and you do this exercise, and it's like a forgiveness exercise because, this anger and this hatred is like a poison that we drink hoping the other person dies.
Right.
So we hold all this baggage as humans, as like adults, and it impacts every single decision we make in every single relationship that we have. And it's a poison that we drink, hoping that these people that don't even know the poison exists die, which is ridiculous. And so he's like, you got to learn to forgive. You got to learn to forgive. And we're like, yes, Tony, we forgive. I forgive my father. It's like, I forgive my mother. I forgive that man or that woman that cheated on me. He goes, hell yes, make your move. And everyone's like, yes. And he's like, now call him. Fuck. Tony, this is the real world. What are we talking about? Okay. So I called my dad, and I was just like, hey, man, like, I want you to know that in the early stages of my life, like, you were the key role model of what not to be. So that's another, like, writer down for people that are listening is your role models aren't necessarily just of who to be, but who not to be.
That's right.
And I said, I based my entire life off of trying to be the opposite of you because I felt like you never loved me, and I tried to have all this success to make you love me. And he goes, man, I always loved you. He's like, I just don't know how to show it the way that you want it to be.
Yeah.
He's like, because my dad beat the shit out of me, and I never did that to you. So that was me showing you love. Mm-hmm. I didn't pay attention to you, but because I did not beat the shit out of you, I was showing you that I loved you. Yeah. So then it comes down to a whole conversation of what are your rules for love versus somebody else's rules for love. And most people listening to this have never actually defined what love is for them.
Or success. Or happiness.
Or success or anything.
Or joy. Right?
Or anything. I tell people they're so close to success that it pisses me off. And the 1 millimeter shift that they can make is just being clear.
That's it, man. The way you get to the life you desire is by getting in rooms you don't think you deserve to be into. And this is an opportunity for you to get into a room that most oftentimes in the year you will not have the ability to get into. The Austin Entrepreneurial Summit powered by GoBundance is the only time we open the doors of GoBundance to the public. This event is packed with some powerful speakers and incredible people from the GoBundance community that will pour into you on your journey of success and help you achieve the life you desire. Service is the Trojan horse to knowledge, and if you want the opportunity to take your life to the next level, do yourself a service and sign up for this event. See you in Austin in May. It's funny because like that story, and thank you for sharing it between you and your dad, is so true for all aspects of life, right? Mm-hmm. Our definition or label for something looks different than somebody else's, and therefore we assume that person doesn't love us, isn't happy, isn't joyful, just because our definition looks a little bit different. Mm-hmm. And so as you're on this journey of success, how has your definition of success evolved and transformed? Because it was about making more than dad. That was... Mm-hmm. I don't want to say easy, but you did that quickly. Mm-hmm. So now what's the definition of success? How do you define success?
Success started off as financial. Mm-hmm. And then, so what I call like first level financial freedom. And then it's time freedom. So then my success went to that, pivoted to time freedom, to where I'm like, okay, not only can I do what I want when I want, but now I can do it when I want, and then with who I want. And then it goes into like emotional, philosophical freedom, to where now you have margin, and you're like, okay, now I'm able to like really like tinker with and toy with like who I am as a person and like how I can impact other people at scale. And so success for me today looks like just being able to clearly define your purpose and act in it every single day intentionally. That's success for me. Because I know a lot of guys with like massive yachts, and one day I'm going to have one. I'll probably be a yacht guy until I realize that I don't want it anymore, but that's part of life that I have to go through. Yeah. If you're on a yacht by yourself, it doesn't really matter. Kind of lame. Actually, the most lame probably.
There's a saying, if it fucks, floats, or flies, you should lease it and never buy it.
That makes sense to me.
So I would just lease it.
That makes sense to me. Dude, how'd you know that was going to be my next tattoo? But no, I mean, in all seriousness, relationships, and this is a whole other like sidebar that we could take, a pivot, because relationships are what I value most. Through my words. Yeah. But the audio doesn't match the video. Because if you look at my spheres of influence, you have 3 spheres of influence, which are like relationships, work, and self, right? So you have like these 3 circles in a Venn diagram, and they're all disproportionately sized, right? So I say, oh, I do this for the relationships. I don't do it for the money. I already have more money than I'm ever going to need. Therefore, ipso facto, more money will not make me more happiness, more fulfillment, more success, right? But I say that relationships are my number one thing that I care about. But when you look at the circles, you have this giant circle that's work, and you have like this medium-sized circle that's self, and you have this tiny little pinprick, and that's relationships. Because why? Every weekend I'm working on my business.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm gonna work a little bit harder. Like, I don't got anything to do. I've got time on my calendar. I'm gonna work on my business.
Yeah.
I don't want to take time off. I don't want to look back on this period of life and be like I slacked off. That is the hardest difficulty challenge to overcome as an entrepreneur, is how to turn it off.
So if you were to fast forward to 50 and look back, what are you doing today that you would regret?
What am I doing today? I would say that.
Yeah.
I would say I'm continuing to work and work and work and not go and build the relationships and put as much intention and effort into that as possible. But I have an awareness of it now.
Yeah.
And everything starts with awareness. Like, that's like 90% of the battle. It's just becoming aware that you have the journey to go on at all.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'd say that today, but I would not redo the last 2 years that it took for me to build the business that I built.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad I did it.
What's funny too is like you were chasing time freedom.
Yes.
And it was space freedom. Like, you have all these freedoms, and yet what is your choice? Work, grind, like do the exact thing you were running from, right? You were running towards this freedom, running from this work, but you've ended up running right back into the work because you love it. You're passionate about it.
Yes, because it fulfills all my human needs.
Yes.
If it fulfills my significance, if it fulfills my passion, if it fulfills my love, if it fulfills my impact, if it fulfills my economics, like it scratches all these itches. However, if I don't also focus on these other spheres, I'm going to just be scratching these itches by myself for a long time. And that's not my intention or my definition of success anymore. So now it's just an intentional pivot into doing work a little bit differently so I can enjoy the climb a little bit more along the way with some climbing partners.
What do you think stops you from enjoying it?
Stops you from enjoying the
from
work?
Enjoying the climb. Like, you're saying, like, you're going to try to find some relationships to enjoy the climb along the way. Like, what is prohibiting you from enjoying it fully today?
I've got this weird thing. I'm a very extroverted person, as you know. But for some reason, I hate being the host of things. I hate inviting people to things. I always just sit around and wait to be invited to things for some reason. And if I'm not, I don't do anything, which is ridiculous. And for some reason, I have this aversion to hosting. I'm like, I don't know, maybe it's a fear of rejection.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, even for my 30th birthday, I was just like, it was the day after Thanksgiving. I was like, who the hell is going to come to my 30th birthday in freaking Whistler, Canada on the day after Thanksgiving? No one's going to say yes to that. And that's me this year.
Right.
Yeah, a month ago.
Yeah.
Saying this, having this conversation in my head. I invited 27 people, 22 showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason people didn't show up was because they had just had newborn children. So, I mean, I was like, oh, kind of rude of you to put your newborn child over me, man, but whatever. It's my birthday.
Yeah.
But, so it's, again, it goes back to that intention of me just doing everything by myself. When it comes to mentors, I don't do that. When it comes to mentors, I'm always like, we, like us over me, like we over me, like I need coaching, I need help. I reach out to you as well. Yeah. When it comes to like my personal life and like adventures and stuff, I was just going off by myself. And that's something that I'm like kind of like toying with right now, is like, how do I get into a relationship while I've got like 6 or 7 months of world travel on my calendar for 2025. It's a hard nut to crack.
It is a hard one.
It's a difficult one to crack, but I'm confident. My hypothesis is that I can find someone that the travel is not a hindrance, but an accelerant to deepening that relationship.
And you've had that relationship in the past, right? It didn't work out for other reasons, but you found that in other people.
Yes, but when it got to that point where it was like, okay, now let's go travel, that's where it broke.
That's where it broke.
And then she wanted to go back to, I want a home base in Atlanta, and she lives in Atlanta.
Got it.
And she has not left Atlanta. She goes there, back home to Brazil, my ex, and yeah.
Atlanta.
And I want to travel the world.
Yeah.
My whole thing, to use your 50-year-old analogy, I've got an 80-year-old analogy that says, hey, like, I believe, again, strong beliefs loosely held, that at 80 years old, I'll look back at me at 30 to 33 or however old and say, I'm really glad I took that time to go spend a month in Japan, to go do all this stuff, to go run with the bulls, to go travel full time around the world. I'm glad I did that. And I'm glad I found my wife or my girlfriend to go travel with and then have kids and then kind of slow down and establish a home base, because then it's going to not be impossible to travel with children. Many people do it, but significantly more difficult, especially when they get into like sports years and stuff like that.
Correct.
So I think at 80 years old, like, I will be glad of how I'm doing things today. However, I'm a bit impatient, but there's that quote where it's like, tell God, the fastest way to make God laugh is to tell him your plans.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I'm struggling with.
That's what we all struggle with as entrepreneurs, as hungry, ambitious people, right? It all takes too long.
Yeah, I can't put KPIs for building deep, authentic relationships and love.
Right.
The fuck?
Yeah. Well, you could. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. Well, what's interesting too is like 80-year-old Brian, it sounds like to me is rooted in gratitude. Gratitude for what 30-year-old Brian is doing, what you're living with. And my guess is there are days where it's hard to be grateful. Like it's ambition over gratitude. It's like, I got to do more. I got to keep going. I got to get that next interview. I got to get that next event. I got to go do that next. How do you stay rooted in gratitude today? Like what's a part of your practice to keep you focused and centered on gratitude?
I wouldn't say that it's hard versus easy. It's just a muscle that needs to be built and exercised every single day. So it's something that I'm working on building. So the gratitude muscle. So that just comes with intention. So I normally start that off in my morning. I'm trying to like really focus on like presence, gratitude, doing the small things. I'm not a huge morning routine person where I'm going to go do a cold plunge, do affirmations in 30 different languages. However, I am taking more intention on appreciating the small wins alongside the big adventures, and being like, hey, like with my team, hey, like you're doing great. Like this is awesome. Look at how far we've come versus where we're going to, because that's an infinite game to play.
Right.
Like it's never, the ideal continues to move. So it's good to remember where you were versus where you are today. So it's an intention. It's just every day, even if it's 10 minutes, it's journaling. It's just paying attention to the little things. But that's something that I've been significantly working on this last year. And that's my big intention for 2025 is grateful and playful.
Grateful and playful.
Grateful and playful. Yeah, there's no reason for me to be stressed out and pissed off when I've got everything I've ever wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I read a quote the other day that said, like, most of us complain about having a full plate, but all we wanted to do is eat.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh, I'm stressed. I got too much going on. But, like, that's all you've prayed for and begged for your entire life. And now your plate's full and you're complaining.
Yeah, your problems today are what you prayed for 5 years ago.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a funny dichotomy, because it's you get all this stuff that you want. I'm working on like this, like it may be another book for me in the future, but I'm working on like this formula for life, because I see people that work their asses off and I see people that play their asses off, and I think that too much of either or is terrible.
Yeah.
And like, cause I've done it. Like I've done what everyone that wants to do that's listening to this podcast. Like I lived in the Greek islands for a month, like just pissing off and doing nothing. You know, like I've traveled all around Europe. I've been in Brazil just walking on beaches all day at 27 years old. Like that's what I did.
Yeah.
It was miserable. Like, so it's not you don't get the happiness that you seek there. So my hypothesis is like, I'm working on like the 75-25 kind of split, where I do like life in sprints, where like 75% of the year I'm on, like I'm locked in, I'm dialed in. I call it like earning your summer, where I'm like, man, I'm going to earn this summer. And I define what that means each year. I'm like, I'm going to put this process in place, get this higher in place, have this must be true, this must be true, this must be true. And then I can enjoy the summer. What I'll do is I go ahead and plan the summer and plan this massive trip. And now it's like backlog. Now it's working backwards to fulfill my work side to be able to have fun in the summer. And for me, so far, that has been a wonderful way to live, because it allows like juxtaposition and contrast. Whereas if you're just traveling 6 months, 8 months out of the year, like I did in the past, you become so hedonically adapted to things. And so I understand why celebrities are also depressed. Like I just got this $1.6 million freaking condo on Rainy Street here in Austin. And I've got this beautiful view. It's the perfect view of Austin, of like the downtown, the bridges, Congress Ave Bridge and Sunset and all this stuff. And there was a moment where I was sitting up there and I was just like, it does not get better than this. This is it. I used to live in the apartment across the river looking up at the apartment that I'm living at now. Like, this is it. I cannot get a better view. I cannot go higher than I am today. Now what? It's like you just take time to be grateful with where you're at. So it's hard. It's a really hard question to answer of how do you balance ambition with presence?
Yeah.
How do you focus on the future while also enjoying the present? And it's a really difficult one. But for me right now, the best way that I've seen to live life is to have very hard, intense periods of work, like the acceleration, and then have very intense seasons of play, which is like navigation, where you're just like having time to like go enjoy yourself, have fun, take time to journal and set the vision for what your next acceleration is going to be, your next sprint. And so that's how I live my life today.
And I mean, the journey you've been on has been incredible, right? Like from recording a podcast for $200 in your basement where you weren't even using the microphone to like where you're at today. I mean, what for you has been the most shocking or astonishing thing that you've been able to accomplish in such a short amount of time inside of Action Academy and what you're building? What are you most proud of?
Most proud of the success of others, because it's like one thing to do it yourself, but then you build a business and then you're like, okay, well, this is a substantial result. Like we try to get people $10,000 to $20,000 a monthly passive cash flow, fucking hard. And so we tell them, it's like, hey, we're going to give this a shot for 2 years and see if these, like, I have this idea of how this will work. I'm pretty sure it's going to work. Like, hop in and like, let's see if it works. And like, let's get to work. And you do it, and then it works. And you're like, yes. Yeah. Then it works again, and then it works again, and then it starts snowballing. And then you're 2 years deep. Now we're going into our third year right now. And it's like we're seeing that snowball. Like we had $271 million of acquisition, almost $1 million of acquisition per member. And so that has been substantially more impactful and fulfilling. And I'm like, yes, when I get to see other people leave. And now every investment I make, when I buy a business within the community, gets somebody out of their job because they're the operating partner, and I'm doing about 19% equity normally, so I don't have to sign a PG. Selfishly. Yeah. But the members are the ones that are going to be operating the business. They leave their job, they get the lion's share of the cash flow because my life doesn't change from our cash flow, but theirs does. So I just structure $4,000, $5,000 a month, just like some decent splits. Like normally, if I can get $50,000 passive per deal, then I'm a happy camper. And I try to do a few of those a year, and then each check I write gets somebody out of their job, and it's freaking sick.
That's awesome, man.
It's a cool existence to live. Yeah.
It is a cool existence to live. And like, you're not just talking about it, you're doing it.
Yeah.
You're like, you're actually doing it.
It's a crazy thing. Online, the best way to win is to just fulfill what you say.
Fulfill what you say. I mean, the best way to live life.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Most people don't. And so you get the members, you guys are working on acquisitions, $1 million per member per acquisition last year. It's incredible.
Yeah.
But not every person is striking gold and taking action and doing things. And so for the person who signs up and, you know, their word priorities are I'm in, but their action priorities are different, where do you see them fall off the rails or fall short on actually achieving what they set out to achieve?
Great question, because that is the sole focus of the business. Like on our team, and I think in any business, you should focus on the worst common denominator, like the lowest common denominator, the person that struggles the most. Yeah. When you're building out connection and communication systems, you build them for the introvert, not the extrovert, because the extrovert is like going to go out and just blab and yap to 9 million people. So we build all of our systems and processes for the person that is the person that comes in a little bit slower out the gate. So first thing we do is in our screening process, we try to definitely defer towards action. So we're trying to make sure that the members that are joining are people that will take action, and we try to over-communicate, kind of oversell how difficult it's going to be rather than undersell it, and just see how they play with that. So when they do join, the biggest thing that we've seen between the ones that are successful and unsuccessful are ones that kind of go into that ego a little bit. They surrender to their ego and they say, and the imposter syndrome and the voices in their head, and they're like, I don't deserve to be here. I'm not going to post. I'm not going to ask questions. This is stupid. I'm not going to write my vision out. Mm-hmm. And so the person that we see that in juxtaposition succeeds is someone that comes out the gate, does exactly what we say, super coachable. They're like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to write my vision. I'm going to write my goals. I'm going to pick my asset class. And I'm just going to leap into imperfect action. Like, imperfect action is the recipe for everything. Yeah. So it's like minimum viable done, like go and ready, fire, aim. And so those people have dizzying success. And then those other members have systems where we're like, okay, cool. Like, let's take our limited resources of like one-on-one coaches and accountability partners, and let's put them over there And so we allocate them based off of who's performing how. So if it's a lower performer, we're like, okay, let's give them a little bit more attention over here so that they can hopefully pick it up.
So you're actually like doubling down on the people that are struggling.
Yes. The thing that we're struggling with, the line that we're trying to draw is at what point is enough?
Yeah.
Because there's sometimes that we've led the horse to water 37 times in 20 different languages and they're still not drinking. And I'm like, we're trying to create like a hard and fast SOP, a process where we can say, check, 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 check. Nothing more we can do. Let's go back and focus on our winners and accelerating their growth.
Yeah, or that next person that's on the line.
Yeah, so what that looks like tangibly is we have a 10% like forced churn basically. So we're looking at the bottom 10% of our community every single year because it's an annual membership, and we're like, hey, like, are you sure this is a fit? You know, if they're super gung-ho about doing it again, then heck yeah. But I mean, we're having a conversation with them saying, hey, we tried like so much. Are you wanting to actually change something this time, or is this just not a fit mutually? So yeah, we'll see how it works.
And as you've evolved as a leader, you've done the I do it. Now you're in the we do it, working towards the they do it. You know, what's the biggest lesson you learned about like hiring or leading talent? People aren't like you.
Yeah, so you can't communicate to people how you like. It's like the golden rule: treat other people how you want to be treated. No, it's the platinum rule: treat other people how they want to be treated.
Yes.
And talk to other people how they want to be spoken to.
Yeah.
Like, huge thing. Because I wouldn't define myself, I wouldn't like label myself as like a wonderful leader, yet. Because I was very much so an individual contributor in corporate. I was the guy that was stiff arming the VP of sales nod. I'm like, nope, I'm good. I can control this sphere of success. I don't want to be having my success defined by a team.
Right.
Because then if they don't do anything, I'm not successful. So I was very much so like me, self-focused. But now learning that sometimes, you can't, like, yelling looks different to many people. Sometimes this would be yelling to somebody on my team. Yeah. Whereas other ones, we can get into it and go into it, So, I mean, feedback is definitely different. And I'm learning about, like, each person's values, each person's disc profiles, their personalities, how to deliver feedback to them over and over and over again. I'm working on that. So that's what I'm working on today.
It's fascinating because I've been fortunate, like you, to be around a lot of very successful people. And I love watching. I love observing and studying how they act, how they interact, how they communicate, how they show up. And what blows my mind is how intentional successful people show up. And, they're intentional with how they communicate, right? So they're tailoring their communications. But like when you think about intentionality in your life, like as an outsider looking into your life, I see you as a very intentional person. What advice would you give somebody that's wanting to be intentional or thinks they're intentional but isn't quite sure if they're intentional enough yet?
Intentionality comes from clarity. So it's beginning with clarity. So I think that's one of my superpowers over people that are significantly further than me, which is why my only delta is time. So it's like it starts with the clarity, and then it comes from like that to then your goals. And then from your goals, there's one more step to the process, which is asking the question, what would be true in order for this to happen? And so that's where my intentionality comes from. It's not from my goals. Like you could have a goal of saying, I have a 6-pack, I'm 10% body fat, or I did $1 million in revenue, or I did 4,000 in passive income. Like that's a cool goal, but what would be true for that to happen? Like what would be true in your habits? What would be true in how you show up? And then that's where my intentionality comes from, is because I have a list of those characteristics, qualities, and traits and habits that would yield the person that I desire to be, that would effortlessly knock out all of my goals. So it's like before, a goal for me would look like 10% body fat, but now I'm like, I don't even want that. Like what I want, my goal is to be the type of person that lives a lifestyle that would yield 10% body fat effortlessly.
Right.
Because of the inputs that I'm doing naturally, not because I wanted the abs, but because I wanted the health and the vitality. And then the abs were the byproduct. And it's the same with my business. I have this thing called economic exhaust, where I don't want the economics to be the driving factor. I want to build a vehicle that I really enjoy driving. And then the output is the economic success for myself and others. And I think once you like play that game, it's a lot easier to find any definition of success.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is like where your discipline and consistency truly comes from is your vision, and your vision is who you're going to become or who you are becoming on this journey. And the goals are what you do. The goals are the boxes you check along the way, but you're so focused on your vision and you have so much clarity around your vision that you know this is who I'm becoming on this journey.
Correct. And you become that through repeated action.
Yeah.
That's how you become someone.
That's exactly right. And so how do you surround yourself with people that are going to hold you accountable, right? Because all of us humans have words and we have actions. And I have yet to find a perfect person where every word is in a perfect alignment with their actions.
Wow.
I know, right? Shocking. I just thought you had a fly on you. Oh, so I've yet to find that person, right? And we all balance and bounce between actions and words. But then we have the accountability and the people in those spheres like you were talking about earlier that call us on our shit, tell us when we're off, get us back into alignment. So who for you in your life is that person? Who's holding you accountable with that radical candor you need?
Yeah, so there's two different ways to do it: pay to play or seek to serve, right? So pay to play is you pay for it, and seek to serve is, okay, cool, like I see you and I'm going to go work for you for free in the very beginning, but then it turns into, okay, like what other way can I add value to you? So seeking to serve, of course. So it's either paying with your time or your money. In the beginning, you pay more with your time, and then in the later parts, you pay more with your money. So I pay a lot of money to a lot of people. But I would say that my peer group that I've chosen, like we're very radical with each other. So I'd say advice for people that are listening on how to find that and cultivate that is quite difficult. So what I tend to lead with as example is, if you want to be around other interesting people, you need to be interesting. Like you need to document interesting things that you're doing, or at least document interesting things that you're attempting to do. Because that is still ipso facto interesting.
Yeah.
But you need to talk about it. Like if you're over here doing freaking swinging a sword and you're a freaking expert samurai sword like fighter, but nobody knows about it, then other samurai sword fighters aren't going to be like talking to you.
Right.
And those would be your best friends. So I post a lot about what I do, and therefore I've attracted a really cool friend group. And then I also pay for groups like GoBundance and for Tony Robbins Platinum Partners now, and making friends there. So, and then also EO is what I just applied for. So you join different groups that are a few steps ahead of you, and then you show up, and then you lead with vulnerability, and then they give it back to you, and you lead with setting that as the tone. You say, hey, like, you don't be an asshole by just going and just telling everyone their shit. Right. You lead with, hey, you guys, I want you to know, in our friendship, my rule for friendship is that you call me on whenever I'm not being a good friend. I'm not being a good businessman. I'm not being a good leader. I'm not being a good human. Like, call me on that. And in return, if you want, I will do you the honor of the same. And I have a lot of those conversations. And right now, mostly my team. My team calls me on it a lot. And we'll have little reminders. So my team is able to give me feedback as much as I give them feedback, which it was not always that way. And I have since fixed. So that's one of the things I'm most proud of in my leadership journey. Because before, it used to be somebody gives me bad news, I rip your head off. Yeah. Therefore, all of a sudden, the business was going wonderful. Yeah. There's no bad news. Because everyone was burying the bodies and not telling me.
They're afraid.
Yeah. And now I'm like, that news is super shit. Yeah. Thank you so much for telling me.
Yeah. Now we can change it.
Now we can do something about it.
Yeah.
That's where the work begins. So.
Yeah. And you alluded to this, but like this notion, this concept of vulnerability, like it doesn't come natural for most people. Like for me especially, like I'm not the most vulnerable person, right?
You.
I know, right? Who'd have guessed? And so when you establish those relationships where you can show up and be vulnerable, like you lean into those relationships. But my guess is what's happened in your life is there are people from your past friend group and business and stuff like that, and those relationships have faded away or have changed, and the dynamics of those have shifted. Have you had conscious conversations with those people? Have you just allowed them to organically dissipate and fall by the wayside? Like, how have you, as you've gone on your journey, not allowed others to slow you down?
Well, there's this concept called the minivan theory. So it's just like life's a minivan with multiple rows of seats. And so in the front of your minivan, you have the people that are like setting the tone, setting the direction. Those are your navigators and your entertainers. Like they're setting the entire vibe for the ride and they're setting the direction. So those are your key people that you're with today. And then your middle seat is more so people that are along for the ride. You're leaning back, talking to them a little bit. Yeah. And you're still having a little bit of input, but they're not directing the music. They're not directing the direction. And then you got your back seat that they're along for the ride, They're eating chips back there,
Yeah.
but they're doing their own thing and they're having their own conversations, but they're still in your vehicle.
Yeah.
So I kind of try to do it like that. I've got a lot of people in my back seat right now. There's never been a time where I'm like, hey, you suck. I don't want to talk to you anymore.
No.
But it's just, you just make votes with your time and your attention. And then slowly it becomes like a once a day friend to a once a week friend to a once a month friend to a once a year friend to a, hey, we see each other at a few weddings and it's like we've never like been apart kind of friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just is what it is, but I've had strong, deep relationships for multiple years that will probably still be in my wedding.
Yeah.
But there's nothing for us to talk about anymore.
Yeah. And that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah. You're okay with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes sense. Talk to me a little bit about where you think the world is going, right? Like looking at the entrepreneurs of today, looking at this whole notion of like the Burr method or the stacking method, like you kind of referred to, like, it seems like those days may have been maybe done. It seems like the world might be shifting a little bit. For the entrepreneur thinking about leaving their W-2, what advice would you give them as to this is where the world is going and this is how you can skate to where the puck is going to be?
Yeah, so I think real estate is a wonderful investment, but I think that the biggest way to skate towards the puck in the future, in the next 5 to 10 years, is going to be the baby boomers retiring and buying businesses. Now, there's no way that buying businesses and passive cash flow should be in the same sentence, but what I can tell people is through intentionality and through building these skill sets, you can have a really solid life where you have money coming in. You can control how passive that is based off of your skill sets and how good you are, your merit, versus in corporate, you have no control no matter how good your merit is. So I think buying businesses is going to be a major, major opportunity here in the next 5 to 10 years as these baby boomers retire, the silver tsunami. Cody Sanchez has been talking about it for a few years. Now she's interviewing like Danica Patrick and all these. She's got her podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that is the main area to go towards is business buying, because we just have so much success right now in our community of not only myself buying businesses, but of others. And that is how you can replace that $100,000 a year salary, like in one acquisition. And then it gets you into the game.
Yep.
So I think people have a misconception where when you hit that $10,000 a month of passive income, that you're now out of the game. But like that's when you enter the game. Like that is when you put your car on the Monopoly board and you start.
Yeah.
It's when you're out of corporate and you're doing your own thing. That's where the game begins. And so I'm just trying to get people out as fast as possible. And then that's been a wonderful way. And of course, like commercial is wonderful as well, but you have to have quite a bit of invested capital into commercial and quite a bit of portfolio to yield that passive.
Where are most of your members finding the deals? Is it like biz, buy, sell, Craigslist kind of stuff, or how are you generating the deal flow for the acquisitions for your members?
So there's 3 different ways, especially for small business. So that's going to be brokers on market, brokers pocket listing, and then for sale by owners. That's going to be like Facebook groups, word of mouth, stuff like that. Yeah. So I would say that the best way to get them is to establish really good relationships with your brokers and get that pocket listing, because they'll have something that comes across their desk and they're like, dude, this is it. We're about to list this on BizBuy. Like, I want you to go ahead and take it. I think every single person that's buying businesses should have broker relations in their back pocket, no matter what strategy they're doing. But also, I'd be crawling these business owner Facebook groups, like not only just the for sale by owner pages, but also just like the trades pages. If you're looking for an HVAC company, go join all the HVAC groups. Like if you're looking for a plumbing company, go join all the plumbing Facebook groups. And then just be constantly posting in there, asking questions, adding value, like 1,000% what I'd be doing. And it's working. I don't really see people as much having success like doing mailers and stuff like that for real estate. It's much more relational.
Much more relational. And so then how do you develop these relationships with the brokers? Like for you, as you're getting into this game, how do you build these relationships?
You come out with a very clearly defined buy box, and you talk the talk, you walk the walk, which is just asking somebody that's done it before you, like, hey, like what should be included in this initial email? It's not, hey, I want to buy a business to replace, I need $10,000 a month in cash flow. You're like, hey, here's the SDE that I'm looking for. Here's the top line I'm looking for. Here's the region. Here's what makes a great business for me. Here's what makes it a bad business for me. And here's the timeline I'm looking to buy it. And here's where I'm pulling my funding from. I've got 2 capital partners and I've got SBA pre-approval for this amount. Boom. Like that broker's like, ah.
Yeah.
And then what you do is you follow up once a week. Once a week, every Monday. Text the broker, call the broker, email the broker. Once a week, every single week. Yeah. And then it puts you ahead of 99% of people.
Yeah.
That's how you start.
The other thing I see a lot of people make a mistake, and I'd be curious to see if you see this as well. They tell the broker, this is my buy box. They tell the broker, when you have this, I'll be ready to go. The broker sends them that and then they don't act.
Yeah.
The broker's never sending you another deal.
No,
right?
it's speed to lead.
You got to convert. You got to step up and say, this is in the strike zone. It might not be the perfect pitch, but I've got to take a swing at this.
Yeah, so 2 things to that specifically. Number 1 is like the LOI is literally you going to the pretty girl at the bar and saying, can I buy you a drink?
Yeah.
Like, people are so fucking terrified to send an LOI.
Yeah.
Send the LOI.
Yeah.
That's what diligence exists for. That's what dating exists for. To where you're like, hey, we're not getting married yet.
Yeah.
Let's go travel to Cabo real quick
Yeah.
together and see how this works out, you know?
Yeah.
Same thing with diligence. So that's one side of that. And then the other side is just being able to go through the process over and over and over again. And just also when people have a deal that comes and it doesn't work, still submitting an offer. But like maybe for your numbers, it's 20% below what they're asking for. Still send the offer, but just put a small broker note that's explaining why.
Yeah.
They're not going to like be pissed at you. Sometimes like maybe you won't get it in the beginning, but maybe that listing falls out and it comes back to you. It just happened dozens of times now for us.
Yeah.
Where we've had people that are like, oh yeah, 6 months later, deal fell through. Like you gave us an offer for 20% below. We're willing to take that now.
Yeah. And sometimes that information you give to the broker is the same information they've already been telling the seller.
Correct. And now they can take that to the seller and be like, hey, see,
like I told you, this asset isn't worth that number, but we can keep waiting. But here's the offer, right where I told you. And now you become...
Huge one is the business owner today putting too much weight on future valuation, on future improvements. You have to buy the business, what it is, how it is, what it sings like, talks like, walks like, quacks like today.
Yes.
And so that's the big thing, is convincing them like, hey, I understand that I can add Facebook ads, I can add Google SEO, I can add all of this different stuff. But where we sit today, you have none of it. And today, here's your revenue. And I think that you listed at a 4x multiple is too much. I would like this at a 3.2.
Yep.
And here's why.
Yeah. And here's why.
And just tell them why.
Yeah. And if they say no, they say no.
Yeah. And then you move on. And you still follow up with the broker, ask if they have anything else.
So if you look at your life, you zoom out, you look at everything Brian Luebben's up to, where in your life are you most flirting with disaster?
I fucking knew this question was coming. I still didn't come up with an answer for it. This is such a Matt King question.
It is such a Matt
This is
King
going to
question.
be a staple for this podcast.
It is.
Where am I flirting with disaster? I'm flirting with disaster in my relationships because, like, to the point that I made previously, I've cared so much about work, but I am not going to be richer. Let me think about how I want to word that. I'm not going to be perceptionably richer than I am today. I will be wealthier. I will have more passive cash flow. I'll have $1 million of distributions coming in. I'll have millions of dollars coming in that I'm saving in my bank account. So I will be financially wealthier, but I won't be perceptionally wealthier than I am today. I already make significantly more than I ever need. Right. Therefore, working just for the sake of work is no longer the sole definition of success. So I'm flirting with disaster by only focusing on that and saying, oh, when I get to 10 million, I'm going to be so much more loved and significant. Oh, when I get that yacht, I'm going to be so much more loved and significant. When I get to 100 million, I'm going to be so much more loved and significant. It's not true.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you are more loved and significant at that point, that's not the love and significance from those people that you want.
Right.
So the answer is like having more intentionality about, I wouldn't call it balance. That's a dangerous game to play. It's like, oh, I just want pure, absolute balance. But I would say intention.
And how are you're aware of it? That's number one, right? You got to first be aware to make change. Now you're aware of it. Now what are you going to do to change it? Like, what do you...
Work boundaries.
So what does
Work
that
boundaries.
Look like?
So right now it's going to start with just going back to a 40-hour work week, Monday through Friday, where I'm just like, okay, cool. I'm putting it on the clock. Like I'm clocking my hours. Like I'm working Monday through Friday. I'm not working until 8 p.m. I'm going to work until 5 or 6 p.m. And then I'm going to lock it off, lock it up, go do something else, go to dinner with friends. Because what I've realized is I cannot control myself if I have nothing.
No boundaries.
Yeah. If I have free time, I'm just going to work.
Yeah.
Because I love working. But if I have dinner plans or if I have this with you, I'm like, and I don't count this as work, by the way. And I'm like, oh, I've got this thing with Matt. I can't take these calls. I can't do all of this stuff. I'm going to go with Matt for a few hours. You know what I mean?
And that gives you the space.
Yes. So it's leading with the intention of what is on your calendar. I learned this from you years ago. You're like, date nights are on the calendar.
Yep.
Family time's on the calendar. And so I'm putting this stuff on the calendar. So in particular, what it looks like today is now like this weekend, I'm already starting to slip back into a pattern that I had before of having zero plans for the weekend. And then the weekend comes, I'm like, well, I've got no plans. I'm going to work.
Yeah.
And get ahead.
Yeah.
For what?
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, by Friday, now one of my main goals is like, okay, what's the weekend plan? Like, what things am I going to go do with people? Because a lot of my goals are relational based now. So it's like, I want to date.
Yeah.
I want to, find a partner. I want to go make more friends and have like a really solid social circle. And that involves me just going out and being social, which is, again, I'm an extrovert. You would think this comes naturally to me, but I love working so much that it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so it's crazy.
So are you going to intentionally set more things up yourself, or are you going to hope to be able to just surf in others' wakes?
No, myself.
You're gonna set them up
Myself. I'm planning events myself. I'm doing all this stuff myself. I'm like, I am going to host the parties because people, this all started from me traveling with this one woman in France. And she, like, first time meeting her, we went for 10 days together in France. Absolutely batshit insane, but it was a great time.
Yeah.
And we got to know each other pretty well over 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, she said this quote to me, which just like completely shook me to my core. And I was like, oh, like this was divinely led. And she goes, can I give you some feedback? I was like, yes, you can give me some feedback here as we are in Paris together.
Yeah. And I paid for your whole trip.
Yeah. Well, she asked.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And she said, you say you have a lot of friends, but I think you have a lot of people that want to be your friend, but you don't have a lot of friends. I was like, the fuck? And I was like, say more. Yeah. She goes, friendship's a two-way street. I was like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, you nailed it. Yeah, you are completely right. And so I have a lot of people. I've got hundreds of people, thousands of people that are like, Brian, like, we want to hang out.
Yeah.
We want to grab a beer. We want to go do stuff. We want to go on these trips with you. I'm not asking them.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not talking to them.
Yeah.
Not putting time to reach out to people. How are you doing?
Yeah.
But no intention. Like for dudes, it's difficult for us. Like, when was the last time you sent a text being like, hey, how are you? You're like, dude, what? Like,
I usually respond and say, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, just
same,
get right to the point.
Me too. I'm like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, hey, like, I would rather you, like, whenever I text you, I'm like, hey, can I call you for 7 minutes? And it's like, and then 7 minutes on the dot, I'm like, thank you, bye.
Yeah.
And then that's how dudes are.
Yeah.
But it's just like more intentionality.
More intentionality.
It all comes back to intention.
What are you scared of? Like, what are you doing today that scares you? I mean, you're talking about making more investment in the business, hiring new people. Like, what are you doing that scares you?
Scared of two things. One, it's not living up to my ultimate potential and not impacting enough people. So I've got a really massive fear of dying an early death and not getting done the impact that I need to get done on this earth. Massive fear I have. Another massive fear is that I over prioritize work and I build something massive that crumples. Like, I build myself a cage. I build myself a prison to where I left corporate and I built a business that's like this massive business with millions and millions of dollars, and maybe I even get it publicly listed or whatever. And I'm like, I just built the shit that I left.
Yeah.
The fuck?
Yeah.
I had this experience. So, as you know, I travel a lot, and I was in Norway. I was in this beautiful town called Alisund, which is like on the coast of Norway, and it's got these beautiful, like, picturesque, like, pastel colored buildings. And it was a sunset, and there was a bench, and I sat on this bench and I watched the fucking sunset for like an hour. I didn't do anything. And as I was sitting on that bench, I realized, one day I'm going to build like a company worth $10 million and then $100 million. And I will have that 9-figure net worth, and I will have thousands, like hundreds of employees, maybe thousands of employees one day. And then I'm going to have C-suites and then VPs of ops and VPs of sales, and they're going to manage managers that manage the people, all so that I can have the freedom to come back and sit on this fucking bench and watch a sunset on a Tuesday. What I'm doing today. So I was like, something to think about.
So do you keep chasing more?
Yeah, so chasing more for the sake of chasing more, building a cage. And then my last fear that I'm most afraid of is that I don't find the person that I'm supposed to find, which is so ridiculous that I enjoy saying it out loud for documentation when I do find her and I'm head over heels in love and I have children and all that stuff, so I can come back and be like, hey, you idiot. And then I can, because it's intentional. So part of me is like, I don't want to talk about that. It sounds whiny. The other part of me says, man, I wish that I had more documented content when I was buying that first house hack. because I don't have anything to show before and after anymore.
Right.
But now I talk about it openly because now I can show, hey, this is what I was thinking about. And this is my shot that I was calling of having this amazing relationship where we're traveling around the world and just like having this passion-filled life and then doing it. And I can be like, look, there it is. Yeah.
What's interesting too is like, we both understand the power of the subconscious mind. Obviously, if you're in Tony, like you really understand it, right? And so how do you balance this like deep-rooted fear, like to die an early death, and ensuring that it's an awareness, but it doesn't become a self-fulfilling prophecy by like constantly being worried about it, paying attention to it, and focusing on it?
Hell of a question. Yeah. So because of that, massive fear of needles, massive fear of getting checked up on because I'm like, oh, you're going to tell me.
Wait. But you have tattoos.
Yeah.
Okay. Which are needles.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But it wasn't that. It was of being told I had some unknown disease
I know.
that was going to take me out. And so I went, and finally this year I overcame a lot of fears. So I was just like, I'm going to exposure therapy my way out of fear. And so I exposure therapy my way out of public speaking. Ironically, again, extrovert. And I speak very well. And I even spoke at your event, the Go Abundance one. It's one of the biggest ones I've done to date. And so I went and spoke in front of 1,000 people, and then I had a medical fear. So then I went and I did Inside Tracker, and I went to Turkey, and I got a full, like, the most thorough checkup that you can do, blood work, teeth work, dental, everything. And then I jumped out of an airplane in Dubai.
What'd you think of that?
It was crazy. It was way more peaceful than I anticipated.
It's kind of lame.
Kind of is.
I was like, this is it?
Running with the bulls was stupid as shit, though.
Riding a bull was awesome. I will do it again.
You say that as somebody that absolutely jacked your crap up too.
I'll do it again. So you're just immersing yourself in it.
So I immerse myself in it, and then that's the only area of my life that I borrow some stoicism from, because I don't agree with stoicism about regulation of emotion. I would rather. I've done both. I've been an extremely stoic person, and I've been an extremely unstoic person. I believe that I have governors. I have limits to like where I feel things. But I try to now feel them completely. And instead of limiting how much I feel it, limit how long I feel it. And that's what I'm trying to aim for today. Because before, I would limit how much I feel things. And that comes from sales in the corporate world. So I'd be like, this deal isn't going to close. And it's the biggest deal of my life. And then it finally closes. I'm not even celebrating. And so I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm not even happy when good things happen anymore.
Right.
So now I'm like, I want to fully feel them, but I want to limit the time that I feel the bad. And like, I feel it, but now I'm able to like keep trucking for maybe like, instead of it taking like a week, maybe it takes a day on me. Or maybe instead of a day, it takes an hour on me, you know? And then that included like breakups, you know, stuff like that as well.
Well, and what's cool too is like you keep alluding to this fact that you're an extroverted person, right? And you are. You definitely get energy from relationships and communication. Most extroverted people aren't data driven, just from my own experience. But
True.
what you're alluding to right now, like doing the full health workup, doing the needle, like all the stuff that you've done is very data based. Even like when you talk about the metrics and the specifics inside of Action Academy, has the muscle of data been something you've had to develop over time, or have you always had that desire for data?
I've developed it over time. It started because I realized that there is no excellence without data. So one of our core principles at Action Academy is trackable excellence, be quantifiably undeniable. So it's like data doesn't lie, ball don't lie.
Correct.
So it's like when I was in sales, I realized, I can still tell you my metrics. I closed at 37%, and I knew if I go on 16 presentations and I did 25 cold calls per day, that I would make $250,000 a year and I'd be a top sales rep. And I did. Every single day I was like, this is what I got to do, 25, and I got to do 16 presentations a week. That's it. I know.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And so I was just like, life is so much easier when I know my data. Always. And so then I went and I looked at commonalities across the top entrepreneurs. I was like, what is different than you than the other person? It's like, you know your data. You know your shit. Like, okay, cool. So it developed out of maturity. Because I'm like, I asked the question, what is 8-figure Brian? Like, what's that guy like? I'm like, that guy knows his data. That guy does build systems and processes for fun. He enjoys them. To this day, like, my content is day by day. My podcast is day by day. Like, and so I'm like, I'm very much so the person that's fly by the seat of my pants.
Yeah.
And that got me to where I am today. But I now have that great appreciation for true freedom. It's found on the other side of passivity is found on the other side of process, profit, and people. So all starts with process.
Yeah.
The process yields the people, which yields the profit, because you can't have good people into a shitty process. They're going to churn out.
Right.
Yeah, and you can't have if you have a good process with a shitty person, that'll churn them out, which is by design.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is like the creative nature of what you do.
Yeah.
A lot of it is fly by the seat of your pants. Like if you get too programmatic, my guess is with your content, it loses the creative muscle.
It's the biggest thing we're working on right now is how do you KPI, like how do you build a container for creativity? It's so fucking hard.
It is so hard.
Because that is like my main thing is I'm like, okay, I want to be creative. I want to go take a walk in the park and I just get the idea for the video.
Yeah.
If you tell me come up with 30 video ideas and let's film them in a chunk, I can't do it.
No.
Well, that may be a limiting belief. Maybe it's possible, but I'm looking at a team right now where I'm trying to do like the Dan Martell thing where I just have people like documenting kind of everything and then we just pick and choose.
Yeah. So it's the only way to really contain a container of creativity is for your whole life to be the container.
Correct. That's what Gary Vaynerchuk does.
Yes.
And I think he kind of pioneered that. Instead of like creating content, he just was the content.
Yes. And it was just in the cab, on the stage, off the stage, on the airplane, in TSA. It was just always creating.
Correct.
But it was just living. It wasn't creating. It was just living. People are listening to this going like, man, that resonated with me. Where do they find out more about Action Academy, about Brian Luebben, about the book, about the podcast? Like, where can they dive in to learn more?
It's worth a Google. No, my name, Brian Luebben, Action Academy podcast. We do an episode a day for the last 3 years. Bunch of millionaires, bunch of billionaires. We teach you how to buy big old commercial real estate deals and small businesses so you can quit your job. Corporate America's least favorite podcast. If you're still listening to this, you will enjoy listening to me talk every day. Promise you. But that time I get to ask more questions. And so it's even more fun for me. So check me out there. Instagram, just first name, last name, Brian Luebben.
What about the book?
Oh, yeah. That's out there. It's on Amazon.
Name?
From passive to passionate. How to quit your job, grow your wealth, turn your passions into profits. I don't talk about it nearly enough for something I spent 1,137 hours on as a data-driven individual. That's another thing. I was like, fuck you, I know my data.
Yeah.
So I know exactly how many hours I put into that. So yeah, no, that book's got everything you need. It's the entire roadmap, the entire playbook. It's on Amazon. Again, you can just search my name up on anything and it'll pop up.
Look, man, I really appreciate the time. I think one of the things I admire most about you is your willingness to take action in spite of all the noise and in spite of all the chaos. I'm grateful to know you. I'm grateful to have been on the other side of the interview for once with you and look forward to continuing to watch you thrive, man.
Let's go, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for being you.